In this presentation, I'm going to run through the PR Form 4A. I'm going to explain you it in detail. Now, before I go to the web page and show you the form, few points that you need to note that this is a paper form or the form specimen from prior to EPR system, which I had in my hard disk. So I decided to use this one. So this is not exactly the same form that you will get it in your EPR system. However, 99% of the details are same. So it should not be a problem. I did not want to use the form for any specific client for this purpose because there is a privacy issue over there. So I decided to take this generic form. The procedure currently is that you log into your EPR system, then you have to download the form, fill up all the details, and then upload it back into the system within 7 days. So you have 7 days time from download to upload. And this is the recommended procedure by ICA. So let's go to now that form in PDF. I will shift the screen. So this is the form, and this version, if you really see, I will show you, is from July 2012, but should not be a problem. So this is a form for permanent residency in Singapore for professionals, technical personnel and skilled workers, what we call it as the PTS scheme. So the first part you have to enter here is your FIN number. That is going to be your employment pass number because you are the main applicant. So this is the employment pass of the main EP holder. If you have any identification number, identification document for Malaysians, you can enter it over here. Specify gender. So name in travel document and use block letters and underline the surname. If you have Chinese characters, you can mention over here. LISS, if any. LISS means any other name by which you are known officially. Your nationality, so that you will specify very clear. Your race. So typically the races tend to be Chinese, Malaysian, Indian, Caucasian and others. So if you are a Westerner, you will normally write Caucasian. If you are from South Asia, that is India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, your race mostly will be Indian. And if you are from China, your race will be Chinese. So put the correct race. Then you will have to mention your religion and denomination if any. So denomination is a kind of subcategorization of the religion. For example, if you are a Muslim, then you might be Shia or Sunni, or there might be something else also. So you will have to mention it over here. Then moving ahead, you will have to specify the province, state and place of birth. So you have to mention all the three: date of birth and your address in country of nationality. Your marital status, are you married or single? What occupation you are in. So mostly you are in job, but you will have some kind of designation. For example, you are a product manager. So write product manager here. Your salary details you will have to mention basic and gross. So you will have to understand the difference between basic and gross. So basic is a minimum salary that is guaranteed to you per month, and it does not include any variable compensation like sales commission or bonuses. After this, in point number 3, you will specify your first graduation degree. So it can be BA, BCom, BSc, engineering, accountancy. So you will have to mention it over here. It is important to specify whether it was part-time or full-time. Full-time studies get more weightage, and then you will mention the name of school, college and university. So you will have to specify the name followed by the university name and also specify the country. And the same way you will specify highest academic qualification attained if different from this graduation qualification. So in case you have done some post graduation, you have done some MBA after your graduation, you will specify it over here. Here you will mention number of children, out of which how many are Singapore citizen, permanent resident and others. So if you are a typical PTS applicant, mostly all your children will be in others category because they don't have any permanent residency or citizenship. Then you will mention the type and serial number of travel document held. So this is in 99% of the cases it is going to be your passport. So you will specify the passport number, date and place of issue, and the date on which passport will expire. Specify your present residential address in Singapore. So this should match with your employment pass record and the postal code. So this first page then is over. Now we will move on to the second page. So here, first you have to specify educational and professional qualifications attained and or vocational or industrial training completed. So here you specify again all the qualifications you have obtained after your 12th standard. Normally 12th standard. So graduation, diploma, post-graduation and any other relevant courses that you have done in last 3 years you should mention over here. Now here you will have to exercise some kind of judgment. For example, if you did a 2-week course in some cyber security 10 years back, then that may not be relevant over here. But recently, in last 6 months, if you have done similar course in fintech, then that might be attractive and that might get some more points. So normally the recommended advice is that diploma, degree and post graduation specify all. Any other small courses in last 3 years which are of importance, those also you mention. And obviously along with that you will specify which institution and which country you have taken this training. And you will also specify nature, whether it is full-time, part-time and in which field it is. The next section asks you to specify details of achievements and innovations which you have made in your profession or occupation. So think about it. Do you have anything to mention over here? Many a times people have, but they don't mention anything. For example, you might be a university topper. You might have written some research paper which was published in some science journal. So these kind of things you can specify over here. The next section is quite clear. Here you specify your previous employment record. So you will specify period of employment from to, name of the company and the country in which the company is located, position held and a salary per month. So if you are from some other country, if your job is from other country, maybe 10 years back you were working in Indonesia. So you will have to convert that salary at that time into equivalent of Singapore dollars at today's exchange rate. Ideally, you should give details of all the previous employments. In case some of the employments are very short duration in nature, then you can exclude those. That's not a problem. For any section on this page, if you need, you can attach additional pages. For example, if your education is a big long list, or if your employment record is a big list, you can use a separate sheet. Moving on to the next page then, here you have to specify membership of professional societies, associations, clubs and other organizations that you have held any time in past or currently you are holding. So you will have to specify the name of the society and or organization and the position that you held. Again, in this section, many people leave it blank, but it is possible that you hold some kind of position and that you can very well mention over here. For example, you might have been president of your cultural association, so you can specify over here. In this section, you will list the countries and addresses in which you have resided during past 5 years till present date. So you will have to specify period of stay from and to, address where you have stayed and the country in which you have stayed. Normally the practice is to exclude the short duration visits which are you went for business purpose, for sales meeting or something like that. Include only the major stays where you have stayed more than 60 days. In this section, you will have to give your family background. Now keep it in mind, we are still on the main applicant. We have not come to the spouse or any children yet. So family background of the main applicant needs to be mentioned over here. So the details of father, mother and any brothers and sisters you will specify. Regarding present whereabouts, you will have to specify in which country they are. I think all other columns are quite self-explanatory. And in the occupation, you will have to mention what they are currently doing. For example, father and mother might be retired, and brothers and sisters might be in service, or they might be working in their own business or something like that. Now we come to the next page, which is for applicant spouse. Now these details are quite similar to what we have entered it for the main applicant. You will have to mention separately here whether spouse is applying for PR with you or not. And rest of the details, as you see, are quite similar. You will have to also specify the marriage certificate number and date of marriage certificate and country of marriage. I'll just scroll ahead, and there is additional specification over here. If there are any previous marriages of the spouse, then you will have to give details in a separate sheet of paper. The country where the spouse has stayed in last 3 years, that you will have to specify, and the particulars of spouse parent you will have to specify over here, father and mother. So for spouse, details of brothers and sisters are not required. Now we come to page 5, where you will have to give details about particulars of applicant's children by the present marriage. So you and your spouse who is applying or who may not be applying for PR, but your current spouse, all the children you have from this marriage you will have to specify over here. So their name, gender, date of birth, race, nationality, state and place of birth, travel document number, and whether they are applying with you or not. In part D over here, you will have to specify and give the details of particulars of applicants' all other marriages. So if the applicant was previously married, which may be resulted in divorce or the spouse deceased, then in that case you will have to include those, and note here it includes customary marriages. So what is the customary marriage? So there is something called as civil marriage. Civil marriage is the normal marriage which may happen as per your religious customs, but after that it is registered by way of a marriage certificate in front of a magistrate or whatever that country's legal procedure is. Whereas some marriages are customary, in the sense they happen within the community and there is no registration for that. For example, in India, in some village, a marriage may happen and that may not get registered. Now, the incidences of that type are low today, but in past it used to happen. So, you will have to include all those customary marriages also. So, you will specify here the name of spouse, place of birth of spouse, date of birth, date on which marriage happened, present whereabouts, and the date on which the divorce was granted or the spouse died. These details you will have to include, and note here you will have to specifically write not applicable in case there are no previous marriages or no previous children. This is because ICA want to have specific confirmation whether you had any previous marriage or not, and if you had any other children not mentioned in the section above, which is from current marriage. So part 2 of this section is particulars of all children by all other marriages, illegitimate children and adopted children. So these details you will mention over here, and you will also specify whether they are applying for PR with you or not. So sometimes we do get these kind of cases where the applicant's first spouse passed away, so he married again, and he had one child from previous marriage and two children from the current marriage. So in that case, the name of the child who is from previous marriage will be mentioned in this section, and the name of the children who are from the current marriage will be mentioned over here. And all these children are allowed to apply for permanent residency. Now I move on to the next section, and this section previously was primarily to get the photographs of spouse and children. But along with the name of the children, you will have to also specify the birth certificate number. Once you attach photograph, you will proceed for the declaration, and the system will ask you some of the questions like whether you have been prohibited from entering Singapore or any other country, whether you have been asked to leave the country, whether you have been deported, have you been convicted of any charges, and so on. It will also ask you whether you or any other person applying for permanent residency under this application has previously held any other passport under a different name or different country's passport. So those details you will have to mention over here. And then you and your spouse will sign the form. So with this, you have completed the filling of details for PR application form. And now comes the next part, which is Annexure A to Form 4A. Information on main applicant's current employment. So you know that when you file for permanent residency application, you have to provide this annexure. So basically what it says is it's a confirmation by your current employer about what your role is, what is the salary, and also details about the company. For example, it will ask whether company is a foreign owned, locally owned, public listed, joint venture, whether it is a branch, regional office, in which sector it belongs to, and what kind of annual turnover it had, present staffing position, how many Singapore permanent resident citizens, and how many foreigners. And then company will sign and give that form back to you. Now, sometimes what happens is some companies do not give this form. They have a policy. They say that we will not give this form at all, or some companies say we will give this only after 3 years of continuous service. So, in that case, it's not a problem. You can write a letter, and instead of form 4A, you can submit that letter that your company policy is like this. And then what you can do is you can include supporting documents to confirm your position and salary. And the last part of this form is Appendix 1, which is actually authorization to Immigration and Checkpoint Authority to connect to Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore system and get the details of how much income you have declared for the assessment. So this is overall the way the form needs to be filled up. Today, most of the details are same. Slightly the layout and the places where the information is to be filled up has changed.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel today. PR Application is a leading immigration consultancy company in Singapore.